and welcome back to another episode of Popkait's Corner. Today we have a very special guest with us. This is one of my most closest and dearest friends, and we're so excited to have him on the podcast to talk about one of his most dearest loves, Loki. Welcome, Alex!
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be on. I'm very, very excited for this. You were the first person I saw Thor with, and then Thor 2, and then now we get to talk about Loki together. And yes, definitely the first love of my life.
Well, I was like, it's him or Starscream. It's one of those.
Okay, yeah. But this one is human, so like more reasonable than Giant Robot Man.
True,
you know.
true. I understand.
Both of them are terrible. Both of them are both tricksters and backstabbers. I need better taste. I really
always
do.
just thought that it was because they were misunderstood.
Yeah, because Loki's had this whole character arc now.
Right. Do you like him less because he seems to be a good guy? Is that that's kind of a turnoff for me now?
No, I've enjoyed it. It was one of those things that it was a natural progression of the character, and he was not really even a good guy by Infinity War. He did sacrifice himself, but he didn't intend to. Let's be clear.
Right, yeah.
He did not intend to die.
He thought he had the upper hand there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I can kill Thanos.
And he would have immediately taken the power gauntlet or the Infinity Gauntlet, the moment he had the chance to. Those are all things he still would have done.
That's true. But now this Loki, I mean, because Sylvie was like, it's spoilers, we're full of spoilers here. Sylvie was like, you just want the power. And Loki was like, no, this is I'm a little scared what's going to happen.
This is a lot.
Yeah. It was the
and
first time
that's
we
one
saw.
of the things that, and during my rewatch, I saw the first episode where Mobius is doing his psychoanalysis of Loki, which is really fantastic writing. But the part where Loki essentially gets down to, people can't control themselves, there needs to be order from the chaos, and I get to decide that order. And so you can see where, by the end, Sylvia's like, oh, okay, so this was your end game. This is, the same old Loki, same old thing. But you see him in that last scene, and you're like, oh, okay, it was not a ploy. It was not a ploy.
No, he was like, I'm firmly underwater here. Yeah, this is, yeah. I never wanted to be at the very tippy top.
Yeah.
No, and then she, pushes him through, and he comes out, and I'm like, oh no, I don't think this is our time anymore. I think you should.
Yeah, that ending was really sad, really good, but then also really sad because you're just like, oh no, where's my Mobius? Where's my Hunter B-15?
Yeah.
No, I was like, no, our Mobius. Because beforehand, we have the one scene, and they're like, well, it's crazy now, and then we come into this one and they're talking about everything else, and I'm like, wait, this is a totally different conversation.
Yeah,
this isn't where we left off with them. So very curious for season 2.
Absolutely. It's gonna be a ride, and I do think they are gonna tie in a lot of stuff with the MCU. I went into WandaVision assuming WandaVision was gonna be what brought in the multiverse. I thought that was what WandaVision was gonna be. And so they tried to turn that on its head, because I think a lot of people went in expecting one thing and getting something else out of that.
Yeah.
And so it's good that they're still bringing that in.
Yes.
I also think it's funny that the very first episode when Miss Minutes is giving the explanation of the TVA and all that, that's basically the exact same speech we get from He Who Remains at the end. It's almost identical. So you can see the TVA has not technically been lying the whole time. I mean, they've been lying about something.
Yeah.
Right.
But the general gist of the mission
has always been the same.
Was true.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting something else. So.
And can we just give it up for Tara Strong as Miss Minutes? Because, her range as a voice actor
Absolutely
is crazy.
It's so good.
Thinking that she was Raven to, Miss Minutes, that alone is...
I knew her from Metal Gear, and so hearing her from Metal Gear into this, I was like, oh, cool, Tara Strong. And then I was like, That's not Paz Ortega.
No, whatever. Because I knew, and I was like, oh, I love Tara Strong. And then they did Miss Minutes voice, and I was like, oh my god.
That's not even remotely what I was
very
thinking.
talented.
So good.
No, she's good.
Can we also give it up for Tom Hiddleston's facial acting throughout
Yes.
this whole thing?
Oh.
The man has an ability to look like a snarky asshole and a kicked puppy from 0 to 100 in a minute. It's fantastic.
Perfect.
He's so good, and that was what I was most excited for with this Loki show. Is Tom Hiddleston is just phenomenal.
He's good.
Well,
and that was the disappointing part of like him being out of the major ending Avenger movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that we're getting him back, even though it's not like technically our Loki. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it was interesting to see him have to live through memories that he's not experienced.
Yeah, that's
and
such
kind
a
of
surreal
own
experience.
Up to, the fact that, he was like, this isn't real, this isn't happening. And so we also have to think about the fact that Loki hasn't actually experienced those events, those life-changing things.
Yeah.
He didn't go through the events of Ragnarok. He didn't go through all that, except him learning that he does eventually.
Oh, it's building on that, because I feel like this show, and then also Endgame, before this, I thought Thor 2 Dark World was I'm like, no one needs to see that movie.
It is probably the most important movie in the entire MCU canon now.
Well, Alex and I were talking, and we realized that we had seen like a lot of the Thors together. Like we all saw Thor, the first one, together, and then me and Alex went to the special, like, oh, this is Thor 2 opening night, so they played Thor, Avengers, and then Thor 2. Because of that, I never made Nicholas watch it.
Yeah.
And then before Endgame, I was like, it's the only movie you haven't seen, so let's watch it just in case. And then it's been so important since then, so I'm so glad I made him watch it.
No, I would have been completely lost.
What I would say is probably that or Iron Man 2 were the weakest, I think, of the MCU in general.
Yeah.
Which is to say, neither of those are bad movies, but they're not good movies.
No, if I'm gonna go back and rewatch movies, like I'm happy if we go ahead and just skip over those.
It's kind of like watching Attack of the Clones again. Like,
yes.
Oh
my gosh.
We've watched it so many times last year that I'm like, I think I hate this movie, but we just have to keep watching it.
It is easily my favorite hate watch movie of the Star Wars and stuff like that, because like I don't know what it is. It's just the movie itself is so unbelievably poorly written, and you just can't get enough.
Sad. Yeah,
but
it's so bad.
Yeah. Okay. So I got a couple of questions. So I got some opening.
Of course you do.
I
don't prepare questions, and it's my podcast, so I should.
I always write down. I have like a little notepad here, and I'm writing down questions.
Okay.
So
let's hear it.
So question number 1. What were your initial expectations going into the Loki show?
Yes.
Like, what did you think was going to happen? And how close were you? And how far off were you? And are you excited or sad about that?
I didn't have super high expectations, which I guess I should have learned from, WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that, it's been their shows have been very good.
Yeah.
I was worried they were going to ride the fact that everybody loves Loki.
Yeah.
So it would be like an easy thing. They could do whatever they wanted and people would enjoy it. Like,
right. You just give some classic Loki and everybody's just like, yep, okay, check the boxes
so
for
I
me.
kind of assumed it was just going to be us meeting tons of different versions of Loki, that was going to be what the show was. Him on the run from the TVA. It was a very simple idea that I had in mind, and it was completely wrong. And I was very glad to be wrong.
It's funny.
There's just so many versions of him that they could have played with, and they did do that for an episode, but they didn't make that the show.
No.
Well, you also, like, playing on that, the trailers totally played up that idea, so I see where you're coming from with thinking that as well.
Yeah,
they did not give it away.
I had a very similar thought, in that it was going to be sort of like a time jumping romp, and like we were going to, like, not necessarily we're going to get different Lokis, but we're going to have Loki like jump to different times, and this is like, oh, he like kind of conquered that time to a certain extent, and then he gets ran off to the next time, and so each time it's just like a little bit But yeah, no, I'm pleasantly surprised with the direction that they went. They went with a much more thoughtful direction rather than just like time romp. But so no, I liked it.
Yeah, I thought that we were going to get a lot more of the DB Cooper kind of scenes
Yeah.
throughout.
Yeah. Where
I
it was
thought
like,
that was going to be a lot more of what it was. And
that
instead,
weird phenomenon is explained by Loki being there. Okay. So,
Right.
Yeah.
The only
so
thing
it's been
that
really good.
I wish it is I did think it was going to have more like Douglas Adams humor, which I really love Douglas Adams humor, and there wasn't actually a lot of humor in this show. And I'm wondering if that's something they'll play on in season 2. But that's the only thing I felt like this show was missing. But I did enjoy it. I just wish that we got to see Loki be a little bit more Loki.
Yeah, he was not nearly as lighthearted as we've seen him before when pulling his shenanigans. I did like the time loop with him and Lady Sif, who I was so glad to see again because we haven't seen her since Thor 2, I think.
That was a great, yeah.
I didn't know if we would be seeing her again, so getting to see her again was great. And it was a really nice little experience to see him still like, but no, I was in the right. It was whatever. I did whatever I wanted and I didn't care.
Right.
To, okay, actions have consequences. Sometimes the consequence is getting punched in the face and kneed in the groin.
Yeah, well, speaking of more Thor characters I never thought we would see again, the fact that they got Jane Foster back, that they got now, I was like, what?
Yeah.
They're just doing it.
I'm very excited for Love and Thunder.
Me too.
And because Taika Waititi, I mean.
So good.
He's so good.
Yeah.
Jojo Rabbit is my jam. I love that movie so much.
Yeah, you love Jojo Rabbit. It was very good. Oh, I had a question, but now I lost it.
Oh.
So maybe you go with your question and we'll come with me again.
Okay. Question number 2.
Yes.
Do you think that Mobius has other versions of himself that exist within the same TVA that he doesn't know about?
Oh, this was a theory that we had seen a lot of.
I'm just curious what your thoughts on that are. Like, are there multiple variants of the same person working at the TVA simultaneously?
I would like to explain where this question kind of comes from, because Renslayer had her office and he was like, oh, where did you get that? And she was like, oh, it's from one of my other agents. And everyone was like, does that mean that she has multiple Mobiuses and he just doesn't know that in her own, where they all like collect things for her? So that's kind of where that comes from, is we had watched a video on that idea. So I wanted to explain that so you weren't like, what?
I want Alex's unadulterated impressions. Okay.
I think it's an excellent theory. I don't think it could happen because it would be too risky for the TVA. You don't want a Nexus event inside the TVA, so I would think they would not be doing that.
Yeah, I was just thinking like the 2 Lokis about to kiss was a huge deal. So if the 2 Mobiuses running into each other and wanting to kiss would also be bad. So
Mobius is self-absorbed enough for that.
Yeah, he'd be like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?"
I mean, this also showed me I have an attraction to Owen Wilson, which I never thought was a sentence I would utter in my life.
Never thought it was possible. I was like, Owen Wilson. I was like, I always preferred Luke Wilson. I just did. And now I love Owen Wilson.
Oh my God,
right. I was like, I'm going to be honest, I've never seen an Owen Wilson movie that I've enjoyed. So then to come into this and be like, I was like, oh, they've cast Owen Wilson. Why would they do that? Why would they choose Owen Wilson?
And you're like, because he's amazing.
Phenomenal. Yes. He was phenomenal. That whole first episode, the writing, the acting, it's just perfect.
I wish now at the very end we would have had, whenever Mobius and B-15 were talking and Loki came up to them and like he didn't recognize him, he would have turned around and it would have been his brother Luke Wilson.
That would be a phenomenal gag for this show. Especially, I mean, you've got variants. You can do whatever you want with that.
Exactly.
So,
and it's like close enough that you're like, oh no.
I am wondering if, so we know at the end that He Who Remains was revealed to be
King the Conqueror.
King the Conqueror. So there's a whole thing where Kang and Renslayer have a romance through time. I was wondering if they were setting it up to be a love triangle of sorts with Mobius, Kang, and Renslayer, based on his interactions with her.
Yeah.
And the undertones there. I was curious about it, or if they would go with, instead of her and Kang, it was her and Mobius through time. So I'm very curious as to where her story goes from here, because somebody has pointed out that the show itself is very much a... I don't want to move on to that point yet. Go ahead with the through time.
No, I absolutely, because to me, the biggest cliffhanger of the show, she just left. She just was like, peace, and I was like, where did she go? Oh, King the Conqueror, though, like, I was so excited about that. I was stoked when Jonathan Majors was cast, because I love the Ant-Man movies. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're too, like, I don't know. I just know people don't like them. I love them. And when he got cast, I was like, oh, Ant-Man 3 is going to be so crazy.
It's going to be wild.
So pumped for it now. Like, I was like, hoping this one... I was so worried after WandaVision. I loved WandaVision. It's probably my favorite of the three still. But I was so worried that this show was going to do kind of the same thing, where it's like, it's not actually Kang, it's going to be someone. So when they did Kang, I was like, yes! Let's go!
I was pumped.
Yeah.
And like,
well,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
They did a good job, because like, we got Kang, but we didn't at the same time. It was like, it was the very subdued, I guess you could call it the good Kang, if you want to go that far. But I thought that was interesting that they went that route, where it's like, yeah, it's actually, it could be a lot worse, and it's going to be a lot worse. We have the opportunity to make it worse now, so.
It was a fun reveal, and Jonathan Majors is going to knock it out of the park. He already did.
Oh, he was so fun, man.
So it's very exciting to get to see. He was a really good actor in that final. I've not seen him in other things, so this is my first experience with him.
Oh, man.
And
he's very good in Lovecraft Country.
I want you to go watch Lovecraft Country. It might not be your, like, it's kind of a weird show, but I just want you to see
how different
he is.
Like,
we talked about Tara Strong with voice acting, him with role acting, because him as that character to this character, it's just a complete 360. He's so good. Mm-hmm. So good. Or 180, not 360, because he's just coming
It just came right back around.
Yeah, he's the same character.
I wasn't going to point it out. I was going to let it go.
You're too kind. You're too kind.
She was like, it's actually, I was a 540. He didn't. He
went so far.
Overshot. It's not even like a clean angle.
It was a wild ending. I was disappointed in the last episode. I mean, I loved the reveal, but the exposition in the last episode dragged it down.
Yeah.
Especially because it was exposition we sort of already had, so we didn't need the full over again.
Yeah.
So that was my only complaint really with the show, was that last episode was really dragged down by the exposition. But at least it was him delivering it, so that was a plus.
He was entertaining for sure.
He was entertaining, and I feel like they used him to really just show you the type of things they're setting up with Kang. Mm-hmm. But no, that was kind of my overall complaint with the show, is I liked Loki, but I did feel like we constantly did a lot of like exposition. Like, we did the same thing, like, we have to get Loki to where he was at the end of Ragnarok and Infinity War, so we kept diving into that. Mm-hmm. And then we got there, and then like we were trying to get to the end of time and all of that, and then we got to the end of time, and like you said, it was like a...
Yeah, it was a lot of, there's an important thing we have to go do. Once we get there, it's just sort of like more dump. And then we move on to the next. Now we have a new thing we have to go get to. So,
yeah, I think it could have benefited from a couple more episodes.
Oh,
I think so too.
Absolutely. That's what I didn't realize with these. Like, since WandaVision had 8, I thought all of these were gonna have the same. So when the other 2 had 6, I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize they were
gonna be shorter.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm gonna take him out real quick. So
yeah, go ahead.
We can do that. Let's go.
I am, though, very excited. I wasn't a big Doctor Strange person, but I am now the most excited for Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah, I was super excited. At the moment I knew that Wanda was going to be playing a role, I love Wanda's character. Elizabeth Olsen's really done a great job with her.
She has.
And then WandaVision showed even more of that, even, than what we had seen before. And so I'm very excited for Doctor Strange 2, less so for Doctor Strange and more so for Wanda and for the things that we could see along the way.
Yes.
I'm really curious as to what they're going to be doing with it.
Oh, that's what I don't know if you looked at like how this timeline for TV shows and movies was supposed to link up.
I have not.
So before the pandemic, the plan was WandaVision released and finished the series, and then a week after the series finished, we were getting Doctor Strange 2. Like, it was supposed to be that closely, like, here's the story. And
wow.
Now having to wait like over a year, I'm like, oh, this is painful. It's so painful.
Yeah. I had forgotten. It was one of those things where I was so excited to go see Black Widow when Black Widow was slated to release, and then they pushed it back, and then they pushed it back, and then they pushed it back a third time. And so I had forgotten that how many others were also. Well, that was something I had family who couldn't understand. They're like, why are you so excited for WandaVision? And I was like, well, first of all, because it's WandaVision. And second of all, because it's been a year since we've had any Marvel content, MCU content.
Mm-hmm.
So, I did not realize that it was supposed to follow that closely. So I guess I'll be doing a rewatch because if they follow it that closely, it means they want you to catch some things that you may not catch if you've only seen it a year ago. So,
well, that's like they talked about too, because Doctor Strange was originally supposed to be in the finale because he was the one that was sending Wanda those commercials. And then because of the pandemic, that got cut out. So that's why the commercials were never really explained and everything.
I wondered, because that was never explained. It was just this weird, like, intermission thing that, okay, and that would have made more sense.
So that was supposed to be Doctor Strange, and it was really so closely supposed to tie in. And it sounds like it's going to, because even the kids have been on set. Her two twins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they've even been on set for Doctor Strange. And I'm wondering if they're using that to set up the Young Avengers, because they also cast a pretty young Miss Marvel.
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm.
How young? Like
older
14?
Than both of the little boys are both pretty young.
They're like 10, right?
Miss Marvel, she looks like she's about 13 or 14.
Okay.
Because they're so young, their ages aren't listed. Yeah. And they're about like 9.
Gotcha.
That's why I thought they were going to age up, but they're doing the 3 of them. Then we're getting Cassie Lang. We're getting Kate Bishop. We have Florence Pugh's character, who we know is going to be in the Hawkeye TV series.
Yeah.
I just feel like they're doing a lot to set up
another generation.
And Spider-Man's going to be the lead of it. I don't.
I mean, he's literally still a child, so
it works.
I can see that happening. I love the Spider-Man Homecoming. Very excited for the next installment.
I'm always very curious about the Spider-Man movies. I have not loved either of them, so this is not surprising.
Well, here's the thing. You know what I loved about both of those movies?
What?
The villains.
Yeah.
I loved Vulture and I loved Mysterio.
Of course.
Like, Spider-Man is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right.
I can move on from that. But both of those villains are absurd in the comics. I mean, absolutely silly beyond belief. And they somehow pulled them in and made them both phenomenal. I mean, it also helped they cast amazing actors. Like both of the roles.
Michael Keaton and Jake Gyllenhaal, right?
Yeah.
My only complaint with the villains that they've done in the Spider-Man movies, it's like, whose fault is it? Iron Man.
It's always Iron Man's fault.
Always. Every single time.
I hope that we get the next movie and it's the same thing. Same premise.
Not Wanda. Iron Man.
Iron Man. You know who enabled Wanda? Iron Man.
Every time.
You could say that because, you have the Stark Industry bomb. It's his fault.
It's true.
That's it.
Yeah.
It
still is.
Tracks.
He was selling to warmongers.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't learn until. Well, that's why I'm
was he
excited
probably
for
a child at the time that happened too? Yeah, but
it's his fault.
Just think about it. He said, "Daddy, please bomb."
What was that accent for Tony Stark?
That is rich person accent.
That's
Everybody
rich
knows
child
that.
accent.
Daddy.
Daddy.
If you go back and you watch some of the scenes from Loki, whenever Loki was an entitled kid on Asgard, you can kind of pick up that voice. He was losing it.
Yeah.
He was just getting into adulthood, so it was just
After Frigga died, it was gone.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
was like the turning point for the
Right.
rich person accent.
Right. Yeah. He's
I
like,
can no longer be this.
I can't be an entitled kid anymore. It's like, Daddy, my gel cell, is it nice enough? So
That was one other thing I noticed so Tom Hiddleston was a good actor coming into the MCU.
Oh,
Yeah.
In Thor, he was really great.
right.
But he has gotten so much better
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
from when he was in Thor. So it's
Oh,
been really neat to watch him grow in range and ability as an actor as well through the MCU.
Yeah.
I
I think we've seen that with a lot of people who have come into the MCU.
Yeah, I think one of the other big things is I think they've gotten a lot better at like writing interesting characters as the MCU went on.
Mhm.
A lot of the earlier MCU stuff is very much like superhero good and bad guy is bad. But now we have
The
much
Incredible
more.
Hulk.
Yeah. We have much more where we picked a character like Loki to make the bad guy, and then we've really worked and massaged that character into something that's like not necessarily good, but not necessarily evil. Definitely a force of neutral chaos for sure. But I think that you see that with Thanos too, where it was like, yeah, Thanos has a point, kind of, if he wasn't like doing it backwards. I don't understand why you don't double everything. Why do you have people?
Yeah.
Why not double everything?
Like,
I'm just so
we can't
confused by
help.
that.
It's the lack of caring for sentient life.
Yeah.
That's what does it.
Yeah, I'm so confused.
And going back to casting with the Marvel, because they are like this She-Hulk series and them getting Tatiana Maslany.
Oh, she's so good.
Oh, she's one of my all-time favorites. And when everyone was like Alison Brie, I was like, yeah, I like Alison Brie. That would be cool. And then it was Tatiana Maslany, and I was like, yes, I did it.
Well, and that's something interesting too, being brought in with the multiverse, because Tim Roth has been cast in
Yeah,
She-Hulk,
yeah.
and his character died in The Incredible Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting
Oh,
to
that's
see
something
his
I hadn't
character brought
considered.
back will be interesting. Like
Right.
when I realized he had been cast, I was like, so either it's a flashback thing, which based
Could
on what
be.
they're saying, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the fact that I don't know, it makes me wonder if She-Hulk is going to take place in an alternate timeline to the
Yeah.
timeline that we know.
And so we
yeah,
never
that-
even have another Hulk. She
no,
is the Hulk.
apparently Mark Ruffalo is supposed to be in the show too.
Right, cameoing
Okay.
from the other
From-
timeline.
Could be.
I'm very curious.
He's
'cause they
just
can
gonna
do
Andrew
anything now.
Garfield over.
Yeah. Have you
So-
watched Orphan Black?
I have not.
Okay.
Highly recommend. You would love Orphan Black, but Tatiana Maslany also in that show, like, because she plays
Everybody.
everybody. But I was trying to think how many characters, but at least 5 fully on rotation.
Is this it's about clones, correct?
Right.
Okay, yes. I have seen previews for it. I've not seen it. I will have to do that.
It is crazy
I am
because
sci-fi love, so
Yes.
yeah, the show is crazy because you genuinely don't think of her as the same person. Like the costuming and
Some
everything
serious
that they
range.
do, and like the way that she plays the characters, they are different. And like you can never like. She even puts like different inflections on their voices and stuff. It's really good. Like,
Well, even to double down on that, they released a podcast
mhm.
that's continued on the show that takes place. It's like 10 years after the show ended, and I didn't realize how much I wanted it until I've heard it. But even in there, you can tell all the different characters just because of the way she just does slight
inflection.
inflections. And she also voices all of the characters. So until later on where they've brought in some of the other actors, but like there's another female character who is French.
Yeah.
And she does her voice, and sometimes I'm like, oh my god, she sounds so good. Like she also sounds like her.
Yeah, the only voice that I laughed when she did was Art because he has a very, very deep voice.
Yeah.
And so she was like,
"Hey,
"Hi, I'm
what do
Art."
you do?"
It's the everybody trying to do Bane voice.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
It was pretty close to that. She was
Oh.
trying really hard, but it just sounded like she was like straining her throat doing that one.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's why I feel like because they ended up bringing in the last episode her brother in, and they had them like doing it together in the end, and I was like, okay, this was smart.
Yeah,
I'm glad
and now
they
he
did
was
this.
doing the male voices, and
Yeah.
it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But that, like, they've done a great job of continuing on that series without it also having to be on screen, which has been really interesting.
Yeah. But back to Loki.
Back to Loki. No, how much do we think all of this is also going to tie into Spider-Man? Because this is going to be before Doctor Strange and obviously before Ant-Man, but we know that it's going to play on the multiverse as well, and it seems like Marvel's super keeping like the trailer and everything for that completely under wraps.
Mm-hmm.
Do we even have a release date yet?
December around Christmas time
Of next year?
of this year.
So there's been no information about that.
No, they're like, you got the title, which is Far From Home?
No.
No. No
gosh.
Way Home.
No Way Home.
No
That's
No Way
right.
Home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because here's the thing. I have been assuming that was further out because of the fact that we've not had a trailer, we've not had, and literally we had the title dropped. That was it.
Mhm.
December 17th.
So
That's when it's coming out.
Yeah, they've
I'm
been
going to say
super
it's going to
tight-lipped.
tie in pretty closely because they've been keeping it, well, they just kept it very closely under wraps in a way that, I mean, a lot of Marvel productions are very under wraps, obviously. They've got the money to keep it that way, and they can blacklist you from Hollywood if you leak. So
Yeah, and they
don't
also,
leak.
we know that they are bringing in, because they have Doc Ock is coming back,
Mm-hmm.
Electro's coming back, and both of those are not from this Marvel Spider-Man
Right.
universe. So we already know that it has to involve the
The
multiverse.
multiverse.
And we know that Doctor Strange is also going to be in it. So it's just how much are they going to? And I feel like they're really trying to play this one up because of how successful Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was.
Yeah.
Which was so
Yeah.
good.
And you have such a similar premise here, so
Yeah.
Yeah, I did wonder about that. I had some thoughts on if that was in such a way a stolen concept. It's not. I mean, technically it's not because it's been done before, but like
Mhm.
coming this close after it, it seemed a little in
suspicious.
poor taste.
Yeah.
But I think, but what's sad is it'll be good. Like we know it's gonna be good, and so it's
Well,
Like-
it's not necessarily like a bad thing
Yeah.
because I think, the fact that Into the Spider-Verse was so good is sort of like it's great evidence that people want that kind of story
Yes,
and they
give
want
us
the other Spider-Man.
Spider-Verse. Yes.
And so like I would be down if they use this also as like a jumping off point to add in addition to having like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man coming over, having Miles Morales
Yeah.
and a few other characters like in the Spider-Verse
absolutely.
part of this.
I'd be
So
thrilled to see that.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm like, if you give me Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man back, I will give you all of my money.
That's all Caitlin wants.
That's all I want.
What
I
if
Yeah.
they
still-
give you Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and they bring back Gwen?
The only reason I feel like they won't bring back Gwen, because originally it sounds like they were, but there's also an asterisk on this, is because Emma Stone was super pregnant during that time. Like, when they were filming it, she ended up giving birth in March, I believe, and
Right.
they were shooting it in July, so she was pretty, like, showing, and I don't know if they would want to tie that in. But I say that, and then it came out that Kirsten Dunst was also super pregnant, and out of all of them, she's the only one that they've actually, like, confirmed
Yeah.
is coming back. Because they still haven't confirmed that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were, but there's been, like, during shooting...
There's been enough inklings
Yeah.
that have been, you don't have to confirm it because by not confirming it, you've confirmed it.
Yes,
Yeah, and I mean, you
absolutely.
have a Spider-Verse, and you have an established universe of Spider-Man already. Like,
And this is like the one thing people have been asking for years is like finding a way to tie in all these Spider-Mans because
keep
no
them all
matter
canon,
how people
please.
feel about the films, everyone loves all the Spider-Mans.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
no, that's.
Spider-Man
the first
3 is
reason-
beloved. So,
I lured someone into watching Spider-Man 3 one time, which sounds like a terrible thing to do, and it was, but it was funny. I told her that that Harry got a bigger role in Spider-Man 3.
That's not
And
wrong.
so she sat down. I was like, it's not a lie. And she sat down and watched it, and we got to those scenes, and she was like, "What am I witnessing right now?" And I was like, I promise you'll get to see more Harry if you stick through it.
Yeah, please, just force it through. It's okay.
Tobey Maguire, I just don't know if he was interested in playing that character anymore, because he just like so hard
No.
phoned in that like performance.
It was a weird concept too. Let's make him a bad boy, but like let's not really understand what a bad boy is.
Yeah.
Right. Let's make him what everybody's mom thinks a bad boy is.
Exactly.
Yeah, like
That's
they are.
stupid.
Such a scene. It's
Oh
such
my
a
gosh.
well, and the fact that to this day, I mean, I would love to see that played up in. I totally would honestly love to see that played up in the new Spider-Man in some way, reference
Yes.
back to it. I
Mhm.
mean, because it's just become a thing of, of superhero culture where it's like, oh yeah, that scene in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, okay? Dark World is the most important film in the MCU. I'm
Yes,
just
we've
saying
decided
that
that.
Spider-Man 3 should be the most important film in the Spider-Man Tobey Maguire canon.
Oh,
So like
even-
when we're referring back, it's only that movie we're pulling from.
Well, I think this one's been rumored, but it hasn't been confirmed that Sandman was going to be in this
Oh,
film
good.
as well. So like,
Everybody loves Sandman.
yeah. What sucks is because of James Franco, we're not going to have a Harry Osborn because no one wants the Spider-Man 2 Harry Osborn.
You're right.
And so that kind of sucks because that's the one thing I think has been missing is Harry Osborn is a really interesting character and him and Peter's friendship is really fun. And I feel like that's the only thing that I really wish these new Spider-Man films had.
I agree with both of those things. Just that it's always an interesting dynamic because you're dealing with someone who is rich beyond means and someone who is poor, and that combo always leads to interesting conversations and interesting character development. But for obvious reasons, James Franco should not be returning, and
Yes.
for less obvious, like not as like sketchy, awful reasons, people don't want to see Harry from Spider-Man, who didn't get any development and then suddenly became a villain.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dane DeHaan.
His
Well, it
development
wasn't
was
his
I'm
fault.
sick and evil, so that's that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty sad take on it, but it was, not his fault, but it is missing from our current Spider-Man.
I just wish they wouldn't have done Harry Osborn in the third. Like, I wish they would have rather teased it rather than going ahead and going full force with it in Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Because Jamie Foxx as Electro, I thought was amazing.
He could have carried that as the villain just fine.
Absolutely.
So, and he did for the most part.
I would say both of the final Spider-Man films that we got from those two universes, the one thing that they did that really dragged him down was too many villains.
Yeah.
That happened with Spider-Man 3, and that happened with
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
It's the whole, like, raise the stakes thing.
Yeah, because they were like, we gotta have Rhino, even though
he wasn't in it.
He wasn't in it.
He was like the intro villain in the bat, and it was like, how did he get a big suit at the end? I don't even understand.
And we gotta have Electro, and we gotta have Green Goblin, but it's more the Hobgoblin. Not, yeah.
Yeah, it's a mess.
It's a mess. Well, I don't know. This just feels like I can't even predict what MCU is going to do because it never happens. So.
Well, I think the important thing, like the big takeaway, is they can do whatever they want now.
Yeah.
Like they can bring characters back. Like death is not an option anymore. If we want to have 6 Tony Starks, we can. Like we can do whatever we want. And I think that is sort of the big takeaway. Is like they were like, yeah, we have to work so hard to make sure everything's canon, and now they don't have to. They can always just say, that happened in alternative
They were making
timeline.
They were making the What If series, which
Right.
I'm very excited about. But there's part of me that's like, why do you need that now? Like, you could literally do What If with everything. And all you have to do is make a series that doesn't tie into the main series at all. If you want to do X-Men, but you don't want X-Men to exist in the main MCU timeline,
just do it.
Do that now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
depending on who owns what properties, but yeah.
This is what I like. I told you about New Rockstars the other day, they have someone called Master Entertainment, and he theorized that they were doing this to help set up all the different timelines for the multiverse. So we have, like, all of these are established, and you know what characters they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all because of this show. Like, getting Captain Britain with Peggy Carter. And where you have, Michael B. Jordan's character and Tony Stark meeting. Killmonger and Tony Stark meeting.
I don't know his actual name in the show, other than his, like, scary name.
Yeah. Having all of those where it's like, what happens after that timeline is weaved off? Like, these are all of our timelines.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That
when we do our Infinity War for this one, and we're bringing all the characters in, and you're doing your time jumping thing, you're going to understand why we do have, like, a bad Tony Stark now, who is still really into making bombs, and you're going to understand that, and we can blame everything on him again. It's actually
it's just a segue.
Everybody's favorite thing to do.
Yeah. It's like, well, so Kang is doing a lot of bad stuff, but Tony enabled him. Did you think about that?
It's my least favorite thing with Civil War. I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, that's one of the greatest. I don't love Civil War, but they do this thing where the mom comes up to Tony Stark and she's like, it's all your fault. And I was like, why does no one ever do that to Captain America?
Yeah.
Like, Captain America did all those things too, but they always are they're like, where's Tony? Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Like, I'm going to follow him to the elevator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we know Cap runs around the, all the...
Yeah, the mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, he runs around the mall. Like,
you guys see
every
him?
day. You could come out to him and be like, it's not like you could do anything to Tony, or to Captain. So...
Also, one of the least realistic things is nobody's harassing, like, Captain America or any other
every
people,
day.
like, in the streets.
Every day.
Every day you would be attacked by children and their mothers and asked for signatures from teenagers.
You would have people coming up and be like, I hear you're still single. I'm just trying
Here's my granddaughter.
Here's my granddaughter. Yeah. She's lovely. You would love her. I don't... That was always one of those things that I never understood the way they chose to do that, but then never chose to do it with any character except for Tony Stark. So, but
I'm very excited to see, since you said originally Doctor Strange was supposed to come out before Loki, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Multiverse of Madness, so it clearly was going to delve into the multiverse. I'm curious to see how that will affect my viewing of Loki.
Yeah.
If some of the things in Loki were unnecessary with the consideration of Multiverse of Madness, or if it just makes them better.
Right. They were built for one another, and they kind of fit together. Like, they're the missing puzzle piece of the other side. I was
trying to find my original timeline because I was like,
you're gonna go through. Gotta go through.
I was gonna tell Alex all the
movies.
How it was supposed to lay out, because I think it's so interesting.
It's entirely different now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the original MCU timeline was supposed to be Black Widow, that led into Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which led into the Eternals, Shang-Chi, WandaVision, Doctor Strange, Loki and What If, Hawkeye, and then Thor and Love and Thunder.
Well, that's been entirely turned on its head.
Spider-Man's not even in that. Is Spider-Man way after?
I think
they just
didn't have it listed on here.
Okay.
But yeah, because now, we're getting Spider-Man. Let's see, because now it was Wanda, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Black Widow, Loki.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting Shang-Chi, then the Eternals, and then Spider-Man. And then we have 2 more TV shows that are supposed to come out this year, Hawkeye and Miss Marvel. But we don't have the dates on those yet, just late 2021.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of where it is now.
Yeah, I'm very curious as to how things will play out now. And even wondering if they had to refilm anything for Doctor Strange, or had filming begun. I mean, I assume filming had to...
I don't think so, because they said... because they switched directors. They switched from Scott something to let's see, Doctor Strange.
Was
Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi is the director.
To
which,
now.
funny.
But,
Which isn't Sam Raimi the person who directed the first 3 Spider-Man
yes.
movies?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm waiting for my Bruce Campbell cameo. Like, I'm a simple
Oh
person.
my
but
God.
give me my Bruce Campbell cameo.
Yes. So where is? I was trying to think of the original. So Scott Derrickson, he wrote like all of the original. Then they were like, we're going in a different direction. Brought Sam Raimi in, and Sam Raimi also they used him for a lot of inspiration for a lot of the MCU films that they were already doing in his directing style. And they were like, because WandaVision got switched around and they had to do it where Doctor Strange couldn't be in it like they were originally planning. They were like, we have to kind of redo the script and rework it around WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just started shooting like around the time that WandaVision was airing. And
Gotcha.
that's how they saw like the kids on set and all of that jazz.
Okay. So
Has Sam Raimi done any superhero directing since Spider-Man?
That's a great question. Let's see. Sam Raimi.
not that I know of.
I don't
Not off
think
the top
he
of my
has
head.
that I know of. Not in the Marvel universe, at the very least. But
Right.
No, he did. He did Drag Me to Hell, and then for the Disney movie that he did, Oz the Great and the Powerful,
Ah, okay.
which they teased a lot in WandaVision. Like that was the movie that they had on the marquee.
Yeah.
marquee and stuff.
And then no, that's producer, short films, television. No, it was just like he honestly hadn't done much. Like Oz the Great and the Powerful was the last film he directed until Doctor Strange.
Hmm.
okay. I'm very excited to see him direct another superhero.
Yeah.
I know that people have their complaints with the Tobey Maguire movies, but I enjoyed them.
They're so
I thought
good.
they were great.
They are really good.
They, along with the X-Men movies, the original X-Men movies, were my introduction. And Fantastic Four, the old Fantastic Four movies,
Mhm.
the new one, were that was the superhero step we had
Yeah.
early on before the MCU took off, and
Yeah.
so always.
I mean, those are kind of I don't know. They're the seminal modern superhero movies where you're taking the hero kind of seriously. Because the ones before that, you have the Superman movies and the Batman movies from the 80s and 90s, and both of those kind of didn't take the characters seriously. It was almost kind of joke with how they did it, or they didn't reference the source material as good as they do now and stuff like that. So they were, these are kids movies. We could just do whatever we want, okay?
Look, I
And-
love the Fantastic Four movies when they first came out. They were my bread and butter.
I've never seen the second Fantastic Four movie, The
It's
Silver
not
Surfer.
good.
From Silver Surfer.
No, I've
Yeah.
never seen that one.
It's
I was in love with Victor Von Doom, to nobody's surprise.
Oh,
yeah,
what?
of course,
That
that makes
surprises me.
sense. Yeah, it holds
I
up.
mean,
Smart, megalomaniac.
right?
Totally.
What can I say? I'm predictable.
Well, in the beginning too, it's they did the whole thing where Doctor Doom, he loves Sue Storm,
Yeah.
and then she left him for her ex-boyfriend, Dr. Reed Richards.
Right, but you saw that touch of gray.
Yeah, I know.
How could
I
you
mean,
not
I
do
got
that?
it. I understood. I was like, Reed Richards? Okay.
Man can stretch his limbs across the world. Fantastic. Super
Yeah.
sexy.
What has Dr. Doom got, okay? I don't even know.
Yeah. Looking back, I'm really amazed at how seriously they managed to take themselves, in those movies, because you're looking at some of the most absurd, other than, even Johnny Storm, pretty absurd superpowers going on there.
Yeah.
But
I
other
am
than
fire.
that, also, I have to say, would a woman's power of invisibility be considered as appropriate in today's world? Probably not. But,
Well, they even played off
was
because
what
they
it
did
was.
that thing where she went invisible and then she showed back up in her underwear.
Well, it's because
Right.
she had to go invisible, and the only way she could do it is if she got naked.
That's right.
Obviously.
because you can't turn other things invisible. That can't be a part of your
Right,
power.
except after we get your suit, which is somehow infused with your DNA or something. I don't even remember.
I
It's
forgot
yeah,
that was
About
the
that whole
plot point.
scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I forgot about that whole.
yeah. That's 100% why. And she forgot how to be invisible about halfway through, and she was still in her underwear at that point.
I was
so.
trying to remember how that happened.
Well, she was trying to
Yeah,
sneak
that's
past the
The
police
fact
so
that
she
you
could
remember
get.
this so well.
She could. I remember this movie. Okay.
It's coming back. It was to get a ring, wasn't it? Was it to get?
No, it wasn't to get. It wasn't to get. The things. The thing's fiance was like, "You're ugly now. I don't want to be with you."
Just also brutally sad.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my god.
it's
I'm
really
like,
sad.
oh my God.
And so he was gonna go up to this bridge, and then he stopped a guy from killing himself, and then he caused a wreck on the bridge, and then Sue Storm was trying to get to him to be like, it's all good, but she was like half naked, and then she didn't get there, and then everybody was like, thank you for saving everybody, and then the bridge thing was kind of all his fault anyway, because he doesn't know how to control his big strong muscle arms.
Yeah.
And then his wife shows up, or fiance, and shows up and puts the ring down. Now it's officially done. And then he like cries a single tear, and then we learn about their powers. So
You guys talking about us talking about this now just makes me so sad because I'm like, why did I like this movie?
it's awesome.
It was a fantastic movie. I
Yeah.
mean, it is. There are lots of things that looking back, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was good. It had Johnny Storm, which
It's so goofy.
I prefer my Captain America. I will say there is my not into bad boys excuse. I like Captain America more than I like Johnny Storm.
I guess so. But he's like a bad boy in the traditional sense.
Yeah, like not like the bad boy that you like, but the bad boy that's like, yeah, I'm too cool for
He's
you.
just like, I smoke cigarettes in the bathroom between class, and I ride a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I ride a motorcycle. I love that that's like the bad boy thing. Like,
Yeah.
okay, it's a mode of transportation. All right.
Yeah.
Because you like the bad guys that are like super smart, which I understand. 'Cause
Yeah.
smart is sexy.
Yeah.
So
The maniacal, cunning sort of
Yeah.
folk. Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
the difference between is like
They always
I'm right
lose.
there with you, but you're like, oh, maniacal, and I'm like,
Yeah, it's
oh,
like-
maniacal.
You're like, uses powers for good. I'm like, tries
Hey.
to take over the world.
Alex is like, they're ambitious. Okay. That's all I have to say. I like ambition.
Oh, man.
I can't help it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that was a great discussion on all of this. Did you have another question? Are you satisfied?
I'm sad. Well, Alex brought up something earlier
Go ahead.
and said, I don't want to talk about this
Oh,
just
yeah.
yet. And so
Oh.
I'm interested in what you were hinting at there.
It was
So,
about.
I
Yeah.
remember.
Let's do it.
So it was people discussing the fact that a lot of what we see in Loki is could be taken as a metaphor for people getting out of extremist religious groups
Mhm.
and
Ooh.
or dealing with religious trauma, because
Yeah.
we see how we have this group that is all powerful, that says they have all the answers, that their way is the right way with the TVA,
Mm-hmm.
and then things come crumbling down where you find out that the leadership isn't what you thought they were, and that maybe things are based on a lie, and maybe you weren't supposed to be there at all. Maybe they took you from a life where you had a good life, and now you're kind of trapped in this cycle.
I like
And
that.
we see different ways that different people deal with that. We see Mobius, who from the beginning is like, it's not about belief, it's about doing what's right, kind of a
Right.
thing, who kind of deals with it in the way that you would expect, as far as he's like, okay, this is, I can handle this, I'm going to do what's right no matter what. And then we see Renslayer, who is so
It's
deeply
like-
ingrained and
Right.
in denial and
Mhm.
doesn't want it to be a lie, because if it's a lie, then what is she doing? What has she done
Right.
with all of these years?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that because Mobius's character, his sense of duty was never wrapped up in the TVA. It was wrapped up in a sense of like personal identity. Whereas Renslayer, her personal, like, she was wrapped up in the TVA. The TVA was her purpose. Whereas his was like just to be a kind person almost. So
His
that's
was
really
do
interesting.
the right thing, and hers
Yeah.
was follow the letter of the
I have to follow
the
the law.
timekeepers.
Right, yeah. And then you have the two I can't remember the first hunter, but B-15, both of them kind of
Yeah.
get it as like a thing, and they unwind a little bit at first. The first one especially,
Yeah.
in that it's so like reality smashing for them.
Yeah, I
is-
love that they did that thing where they were like, well, I had a life before this. Like, I have this memory.
Right.
But B-15, like, trying to convince other people, I super loved, and taking
Mhm.
that one guy and being like, see, this is not
Yeah.
Renslayer.
Yeah.
They have a different name. And that was so good.
And
B-15 had one of the best arcs of the show, honestly,
Oh my
because
goodness,
we see her
she's
in episode
great.
1 dedicated to the TVA. Also awesome because she's giving Loki like a hard time, which fantastic. And then by
Doesn't
the
put up with her
end,
shit at all.
yeah, no, and then by the end, she's one of the key players in helping
Unwind it all.
take down the TVA,
Yeah.
unwind everything that's gone wrong. And so it was just a take on it that I hadn't considered, and I was like, okay, you know
That's
what?
really
That not
interesting.
only makes sense, but it's like pretty spot on.
Side note, she's also in Lovecraft Country.
Mhm.
County. Lovecraft County.
Okay.
Yes. So,
She's
I
also
love
very
that.
good in that too.
she
so.
is. So, well, now that was definitely the perfect capper to the episode. Also, this is our 10th episode. We finally reached 10
Yay!
episodes.
We did it. We're a decade old.
Fantastic.
We're a decade old. Yeah, that's what we're saying. So, thank you for being our very special guest for our 10th episode.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad that we will hopefully continue to have you in the future because this was a lot of fun.
I would love that. If you need anyone to give a dissertation on Starscream and why he should be leader of Decepticons, I am always available.
Well, I'm waiting for the next Transformers movie to drop, and then we'll talk about it. So,
Well,
like,
speaking of
have a
the
lot
next
of feelings.
Transformer, yeah, like I don't even understand. It's they're going back to dinosaurs, right? Dinosaur Transformers. They're bringing those back.
are
already
they?
brought this back in
I
4 or
know. I'm
5.
so confused. I know. We saw that together.
Yeah, we did. We sure did at the Warren Theater. And the guy next to us fell asleep. Like, as soon as the movie started, he'd had a bit too much to drink. And that was also that was the time that I learned that different layers of alcoholic beverage settle at different places. So
Yeah.
I was drinking the straight liquor from the bottom of it. And you were like, I don't understand. This tastes like Sprite. And I'm like, it tastes like liquor. And I learned to stir a drink that day.
That's
So-
what I was like. After that, I always remember if we went anywhere, you would stir your drinks to me.
We were
Oh.
babies back then.
We were babies back then, and look at us now.
It's like I know to stir a drink and talk about Loki. So-
Yeah. Hey, that was another thing somebody pointed out is that in this day and age, you say the variants and you don't know if you're talking about Loki or COVID.
Yeah, I think that
those are two incredibly different subjects.
I'm a little like concerned with the like how like those came into be so close to one another. I'm like, did Disney know something? Did Disney do COVID?
Wow, this is a big conspiracy.
That's the conspiracy theory we need.
Yeah, I was like,
Why haven't I seen this yet? There's variants in this show, and there's variants of oh my god, it just
It's all
fits.
connected.
Like, look at it.
I don't want that on this show. This is
Yeah.
cut. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and
Thank
we
you.
will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.